And in the meditation practice today, I thought I would guide you in a fairly simple, but maybe not easy practice where we'll focus uh, our primary object on the breath, mindfulness of the breath, mindfulness of the body. And the guidance will be um, intermittent, is a good word. I'll try not to fill up the whole space with words. I like to offer meditation guidance with a lot of silence, so you can really tune into your own inner guide. Um, and for some people, this might actually be uncomfortable, and you might find yourself distracted, and noticing that more than usual. And my recommendation is if distraction or something else is pulling you away during this 30-minute meditation, just to notice that. Notice what's pulling you away in the moment and try not to act on it. Try to just be curious about what's pulling you away. And then if I'm not speaking, there's no guidance and you don't know what to do, just gently lead your own self back to your primary object. So that's all you really have to remember for today's meditation is making a commitment, if you will, um, to focusing on a primary object. And I'm going to recommend the breath. But if the breath is not comfortable for you for any reason, you don't need to use the breath as your primary object. You could use another system in the body, a body part, maybe the sensation of yourself sitting or a sound as your primary object, just noticing the rise and fall of a sound. And just when I perhaps like some guidance I might use in terms of noticing the rise and fall of your breath. You can try the breath or you can try a sound. So just giving you some options there. And then the intention, if I may invite you to have an intention, is to be curious about what pulls you away from your primary object. And then after the meditation period, we'll move right into the movement with Emily so we can get up and move around a bit before we find our seats again for a short Dharma talk on cultivating metta and loving kindness. And the focus of the talk will really be on this cultivation of of metta and radiating it, living it. So I hope you enjoy that. And then we'll have a reflection period to talk about what's alive for you in your practice or anything that comes up during the talk. We can have a Dharma sharing. Okay, so warm welcome again for everyone tuning in. And let's get started with the practice. So if you haven't already, finding a comfortable position for meditation. I myself, I'm seated, and I'll offer some guiding points for a seated practice. Others may be lying down, that's perfectly fine. The Buddha also instructed that standing is another perfectly fine position for meditation. So just choosing your position for today. And taking a moment in the very beginning just to tune in on how you are arriving in this moment. Softening your eyes, focusing inward and tuning in and just noticing. Just taking a few moments to notice how you're feeling in this moment. And now just noticing the posture you've chosen and making any adjustments if needed. Seated in a way that allows a balance between sitting upright and being relaxed. Feeling your body supported by the ground or cushion. Allowing your spine to be upright as possible. The head resting on top of the spine. Chin slightly tucked. Allowing the neck muscles to relax. Shoulders to relax down the spine, down the back. Your hands may be resting palm over palm in your lap, below the belly button. Thumbs slightly touching. Ears over shoulders. Once again, a posture that is equanimous between being alert, alive, and relaxed, all on equal footing. And noticing what's alive for you. I'm noticing an inner experience of gratitude arising for being here in this moment with all of you and sharing this practice in a supportive community of like-minded individuals. I'm beginning by noticing our breath, noticing your breath, not changing it in any way, just noticing the body breathing. Allowing the mind body, this integrated system, to calm itself. We may notice if our breath is long or short. I'm noticing when my breath is long, inhaling and exhaling deeply, that my body calms. my mind calms. And just noticing what it's like for you. Inviting you to choose the breath as your primary object for meditation. And this simply means tuning into the breath with curiosity. And feeling the sensations of the breath in the body. You may even feel the movement of the breath in your belly, rising and falling with each breath. You may feel the breath coming and going through the nostrils. You may feel the cadence of the breath, the air flowing. Perhaps even noticing the space between your nostrils and your upper lip, where the breath may be landing on its exhale. Allowing the body-mind to relax itself. Noticing any areas of tension or stress in the body. And try breathing into these spaces to notice if the tension eases or relaxes at all. Letting go of tension in the body. Breathing into tension. To pain. To tightness. Noticing any changes. If it remains difficult to focus on your breath as the primary object of this meditation, you can try counting your breath. Counting at the top of each inhale. Inhaling 1, exhaling. Inhaling 2, exhaling. And try that up to 10 on your own. And if that's easy, continue counting up to 20. And if you lose track, you can also notice this and begin again. Inviting you to drop any counting of the breath, to sink deeper into your meditation practice. Deeper into awareness, receiving whatever arises. Knowing your primary object is always with you. As you open to more greater spaciousness and awareness, observing the body breathing. All on its own. And taking good care of your exhale. Noticing that moment, that space between your exhale and the next inhale. This natural spacing at the end of every exhale. Before the next inhale. taking care of the breath, taking care of the body, the mind, the life force within you. Within this body, from birth until death. This is the breath we take care of. And we can notice the things, the feelings, the emotions, the sounds, the thoughts that pull us away from our breath, pull us away from the focus of the breath as the primary object of meditation. We can be curious about the things that pull us away, letting them be, gently letting go, and coming back to the breath. The gentle inhale and exhale of the breathing body. That's always there during our lifetime. Something we can tend to and care for. And we can feel how a deeper breath, a deeper expansion of the lungs opens up our front body. A full breath fills our lungs. Opens space for our heart. And may we be able to access all the love in our hearts. May we be able to access all the love in our hearts. And share any well wishes of metta, loving kindness that are generated through our practice. Radiating from our heart into the world and touching all beings without exception. This can be part of our practice. Generating, cultivating, and sharing loving kindness for ourselves and for all beings. May we all be able to access and share the love in our hearts. And finding closing of this practice and bringing our hands together and thanking ourselves and each other for this practice and for the Dharma that teaches us. Thank you for your practice. Begin to bring some movement back into your body. Fluttering your eyes open. Shaking out your hand, any twisting you may wish to do. So now we'll move into a short Dharma talk. So I prepared one today on, moving to it, cultivating metta and kindness, a topic I believe that never gets old. And so this weekend I was catching up on a New York Times series, and I can put a link to it later in the chat because it was from 2024, and I found it very interesting. It was a challenge, actually, that engaged teens in a multimedia contest to respond to the following question. What can you show or tell us to help explain what it's like to grow up in this political moment? And students from around the world responded with very powerful art and writing and video. And this really left me feeling quite impressed by the responses of so many young people naming and describing the world that they're living in just as it is, and still choosing to act and still choosing to be hopeful despite everything going on. Meanwhile, um, we had an unprecedented military parade through the streets of my hometown, Washington, D.C. And there are continuing wars in Gaza, Sudan, and Congo, new wars in Iran. And with climate, we're seeing those changes, floods and fires and heat waves. And US immigration policy collapsing in real time in our nation. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's easy to feel overwhelmed. And I feel a lot of people come to meditation as a resource and a tool, which it can be helpful to really stay centered and present when the myriad things around us contain a lot of suffering. And during these times, it's also a helpful reminder that presence, it's not time to check out. It's time to be present as best as you can. And rest, yes, can be part of that, and resetting. Personally, I'm just coming back from a week-long silent meditation retreat. I took an even longer news break afterward. And a renewed focus to really devote time and energy to the things that I care about. And that includes practicing this moment, practicing in this moment, the mindfulness of meeting each moment and each person with kindness and care and metta. And so I've been practicing that. And that's what I want to talk about today, is cultivating metta and living in love. And I think we've heard from many meditation teachers and practitioners that whatever we frequently ponder or think about becomes the inclination of our minds. And that's really worth taking in. And the practice of mindfulness of the mind, how our mind shapes us. And sometimes it's easy to forget that moment after moment we're conditioning our minds through our thinking. And one aspect of right thought that's worth cultivating is, and we keep coming back to in our practice, is this metta, this loving kindness, goodwill, and that word cultivate, we can grow this quality of loving kindness for other people and ourselves. I'm quoting a line from a 14th century samurai poem, anonymous. It's very simple, that's why I like it. I make my mind my friend. I make my mind my friend. And the Buddha also talked about this when he said, neither mother or father, nor any other relative can do one as much good as one's own well-directed mind. And sometimes we can meet people in our lives who have really made their minds their friends. And you can think about it like, do you know someone? Is there someone in your life who genuinely meets people with kindness and goodwill? Like genuinely someone who radiates this loving care to everyone they meet. You know, often we talk about more well-known people like the Dalai Lama, who says that he tries to meet everyone or tries to greet everyone he meets like an old friend. And when we meet like more ordinary people, if you can say like people in our daily lives like this, we we feel that we're really heard because this person is giving us their undivided attention. I think that's really the key. You know, they're listening to us like we're like the most important person in the world. I think hopefully we all have that experience and we can maybe remember a person that made us feel this way. What a fantastic way to be in the world. And we can practice that. We can practice treating everyone we meet like an old friend. Thich Nhat Hanh writes, I have to refer to his quote here. I'm reading this it's from Tara Brach's book, Radical Acceptance. On page 172, Thich Nhat Hanh writes, when you say something like, I love you, with your whole being, not just with your mouth or your intellect, it can transform the world. Because we are interconnected, when we awaken love in ourselves and express it, our love changes the world around us. The hearts of those we touch are opened, and they in turn touch the hearts of others. Love is the basic nature, the goodness of all beings waiting to manifest. So whether we offer love in silent prayer or aloud, we are helping love to flower in all beings everywhere. And this expression of our deepest nature is the living power of loving kindness. As the Buddha said, it glows, it shines, it blazes forth. So in this regard, it does seem quite simple, doesn't it? A simple wish for all beings to be happy and to be at peace. And although we may derive great benefit from this feeling of metta, you know, just having me say these words, of loving kindness for all beings, greeting every person like an old friend. That expression of metta is not really to seek my own personal benefit or self-benefit. It's not offered with an expectation of return. And so when it's offered without expectation, it is a gateway to an open heart. And another metaphor of this, it's like the sun shining on all beings, right? Without exception. The sun is shining without expectations. So the expression of metta is not dependent then on certain conditions or for people being in a certain way. And so with this sort of unconditioned expression of loving kindness, it's given in a way without expectation in return, so it doesn't easily turn into ill will or jealousy, as loved filled with a desire might do. That's something very interesting to think about. And metta is not a quality that's limited to the people closest to us. And as we just did in the meditation practice, we shared this type of, radiated the loving kindness and touching all beings without exception. So it's a practice and it's an offering. And while we may personally feel close to a number of people in our lives, we likely don't feel close to 8 billion people on the planet. But metta, however, does have this amazing ability to embrace all beings without distinction, without exception, because it is this radiating wish that can be extended to all beings. And this is why metta falls within the Brahma Viharas, the heart practices, the boundless states of the heart and mind, as one of the immeasurables. So loving kindness is boundless and immeasurable. And sometimes, when we were beginning this practice, we were like, oh, it's, I can only go so far, but there's certain people, they're causing way too much harm in the world. There's a block there. The people who do us harm. But there is a way to still share metta with the people who do us harm. And that is through the wish that may this person be free from hatred. May this person be free from fear, from the root causes that the root causes that generate these harms. So there's still a way to share metta, and probably even more so. And so many of us in this community, in the sangha, and through great teachers like Tara Brach and Jack Kornfield and many, Sharon Salzberg, practice the metta or loving kindness in a way that we move from like a benefactor to a friend to a neutral person and then to a more difficult person. So kind of moving along these categories and sharing loving kindness, then ultimately to all beings, including ourselves. So that's a beautiful way to practice metta. But also the Buddha taught about radiating metta from our heart. But if we're practicing along the different categories of people here, I was practicing in the last week with a neutral person, finding this neutral person, and my mind landed on the person, the desk person from my gym, someone that I see fairly often, but I have no particular feelings either way for. So I started bringing this person into my mind's eye and practicing metta. And then I started seeing this person in a different way. And I'm showing up at the gym and I'm like, oh, wow, it's you. This person who's bringing me so much joy, if you only knew. Um, and so that's, you know, it's a joyful way to practice with metta and bringing that neutral person, whoever it may be, try that and see how it works for you. But the realization, there's a profound realization in this as well. And it's the realization is how we feel about people is up to us, right? So this desk person had nothing to do with it. How we feel is not dependent on what another person does or their behavior. It's totally up to us. And the Buddha also has a discourse on loving kindness. And I'm looking at the time. Um, I could I could read that maybe at the end. I'll go through what else I have in the talk, but yes, he did teach on loving kindness and expresses um, what we're cultivating in the sutta, a discourse on loving kindness, a metta sutta. But before I get to that, I wanted to talk about the benefit from metta in this practice of vipassana, our practice of mindfulness meditation, and the interlinkages here. That so in our practice, we're noticing in the insight practice, we're noticing what arises, right? What arises in our mind and our thoughts, um, our experiences, our feelings, our emotions. And the question then, in terms of bringing metta into the insight meditation, is this good guiding question is it possible for us to treat every rising experience like an old friend? It's like being with the limitless beings that arise in our own minds with an attitude of loving kindness. And so that's something you could bring to your next practice, when you're sitting and you're noticing all the myriad things arising. Can you meet those arising experiences with metta? And this quality that can be cultivated with practice, the quality of loving kindness, can open our hearts and minds. And just think about how it may have already opened your heart and mind in your own practice. And we can talk about that during the reflection period. One thing I noticed in my own life is having less judgments about other people and myself. Kind of building space around that reaction, having a more wise response versus an unskillful reaction. And I can attribute that to metta, to loving kindness. And we can also relate to our anger with metta. And Thich Nhat Hanh again, the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh says, the Buddhist attitude is to take care of anger. We don't suppress it. We don't push it down into our hips or our back or our shoulders. Ooh, I said, ooh. We don't suppress it. We don't run away from it. We just breathe. And we hold our anger in our arms with utmost tenderness. The anger is no longer alone. It is with our mindfulness. And if you keep breathing, mindfulness particles will infiltrate the anger. If you keep shining your compassion and understanding on it, your anger will soon crack. And you will be able to look into its depths and see its roots. Unquote. That's such a beautiful way that Thich Nhat Hanh describes caring for our anger, shining our compassion, our understanding on it so we can see the root causes. What are the root causes? What's beneath the anger? And taking time in our practice to explore that and be curious about it. Those are awakening factors. So it's a very skillful use of metta to help us see the roots of anger. And then when we're not so reactive, we're opening space, right, for more discernment, to see more clearly what is skillful and what is not skillful in terms of our response. And then this cascades into our lives, making wiser choices, which can lead to more metta, more joy, more clarity, wiser choices, which then leads to more metta, more joy, more clarity. You see, this has a spiral, kind of a spiraling upwards in our minds, in our hearts, and establishing perhaps some new neural pathways in our brains of goodwill and good humor. And so we're all in this same boat together, right? This interconnectedness, this interbeing, this mix of qualities. And there's a quote from W.H. Auden. Love your crooked neighbor with all your crooked heart. Love your crooked neighbor with all your crooked heart. Right. This is a practice. A practice. And we can commit to do our best with a lightness of being, with a joy in our heart. Perfection is hard. It's practice, right? Not perfection. And as we do this, connecting to the deeper notions of goodwill and loving kindness underneath, these surface emotions may also arise. Including anger or fear. And instead of holding on to them like a burning coal, we can just let go, letting go of a hot burning coal. And this can be the direction. A reminder of ourselves that it's possible to let go, also with a certain amount of care for ourselves and for others. And in closing, looking at the time again. Yeah, I will close with this quote, and then we can go into a reflection, discussion for a few moments if anyone has something to share. But here's a wonderful quote by a Nyosho Kempo Rinpoche, Tibetan Buddhist. And he he said, relax, be nice to each other, just relax. As you go through life, simply be kind to people. Try to help them rather than hurt them. Try to get along with them rather than fall out with them. With that, I will leave you, and with all my good wishes. Thank you so much for your kind attention.